Workers have begun the difficult task of decommissioning the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. One of the biggest hurdles they're facing is how to remove melted fuel from the crippled reactors. First, they need to know the condition of the fuel. Experts believe the fuel has cooled down and turned into debris. But engineers with Tokyo Electric Power Company have not been able to check the actual state of the debris because of the high levels of radiation. Now they might have figured out a way to measure the highly toxic materials. Today's Nuclear Watch focuses on efforts to overcome this problem.
These flashing streaks show the passage of elementary particles called muons. The particles rain down from space. Every minute, 10,000 muons per square meter land on Earth. Scientists have relied on this particle to probe materials that are beyond our reach. One example is volcanic magma. The technique is called muon imaging or muon tomography. When the particles hit a high-density object, such as magma, they lose energy or are absorbed. By measuring these changes, scientists can determine the shape of the magma in a way that resembles an X-ray. Researchers are now hoping to use this technique to gain a better understanding of the situation inside the damaged reactors of Fukushima Daiichi.
By using muons, we expect to be able to look for the presence of heavy materials, even if radiation levels are so high that we cannot approach the area.
One of the studies is being conducted by scientists from Toshiba and the U.S. Los Alamos National Laboratory. Their plan is to place detectors on opposite sides of the reactor. The detectors will be used to track the behavior of muons as they pass through the concrete walls and the shielding of the reactor, in a bid to determine the status of the molten fuel. This image shows the results of a test on uranium fuel. The longer the measurements take place, the more accurate the image becomes. Tests are now underway to develop the equipment needed at Fukushima Daiichi.
Keiichiro Okamoto has been covering this story. He explains what lies ahead for the scientists.
Team members face big challenges. The first is installing the equipment. The detectors are very large and heavy. The molten fuel inside the reactors is believed to have sunk to the bottom of the containment vessels. So scientists must place the detectors around the vessels deep underground. The job is made even more difficult as the whole radiator is cluttered with pipes and cables. It's also flooded with contaminated water. An engineer I spoke to expressed some concerns.
The detectors need to be big to observe something as big as a nuclear reactor. Taking them to the site and assembling them in a radioactive environment will be tough. We need to do more work.
Another obstacle is the extremely high radiation being emitted by the surroundings. This creates noise that could disrupt the study by affecting the devices. If this happens, researchers won't be able to correctly grasp the situation inside the reactors. These are just some of the issues the studies must address.
Engineers at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant have been struggling to stop contaminated water from leaking into the ocean. They have a new plan for a wall in a tunnel underneath the complex to try to stop the radioactive flow. Highly contaminated water is flowing into a maze of underground utility tunnels. Engineers suspect that water is mixing with groundwater and leaking into the ocean. In April, workers with the Tokyo Electric Power Company started to create a wall of ice between the basement of the number 2 reactor building and the tunnel. They installed pipes to carry coolants, but by July, the water had yet to freeze. So workers added more than 400 tons of ice and dry ice. They say this helped freeze over 90% of the tunnel cross-section. They report obstacles prevented them from installing coolant pipes everywhere. TEPCO officials say they want to fill gaps in the ice with materials such as cement. Nuclear regulators say they'll decide whether to approve the plan. First, they want to assess the effectiveness of using filler material in tests conducted by TEPCO. A separate project is now underway at the plant to freeze soil and create a wall of ice around the 4 reactor buildings. It is aimed at blocking groundwater from flowing into damaged reactor buildings and becoming tainted. But a delay in efforts to build the wall in the tunnels could hold up that project as well. That's because the ice wall and the tunnels will intersect at some points. Japan's nuclear regulators plan to revive the safety guidelines concerning accidents. They want to study ways of dealing with incidents of radioactive material spreading from nuclear plants beyond current recommended evacuation zones. The guidelines were changed after the 2011 Fukushima Daiichi meltdown. They recommend people with 30 kilometers of a nuclear plant evacuate or stay indoors in the case of an accident. Earlier guidelines had set the radius at 10 kilometers, but experts point out the possibility of residents suffering from internal radiation exposure from plumes that spread beyond 30 kilometers. Nuclear Regulation Authority officials decided to study a wider zone. They will look into which areas should be issued warnings or follow safety measures. The officials also decided to set similar zones for nuclear fuel recycling facilities on a case-by-case basis.
The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident in March 2011 created massive amounts of highly radioactive waste. 3 years later, the Environment Ministry is struggling to deal with it. The ministry unveiled a plan to build storage facilities in 5 different prefectures. But one mayor says the waste is not welcome in his town. The facilities are designed to permanently hold materials with radiation levels above 8,000 becquerels per kilogram. That would include sewage sludge, incinerated ash, and debris. Last month, the ministry decided to build a storage site on state-owned land in Shibuya, a town in Tochigi Prefecture north of Tokyo. But the mayor opposes the plan. Mayor Kazuhisa Mikata and the Speaker of the local assembly visited the ministry to file their concerns. They say the facility would have a negative impact on natural water resources and agricultural products. They said local produce would suffer from unfounded fears about food safety.
We want to explain the plan. Please give us the opportunity.
Mikata told reporters the central government must explain why it chose the Shibuya site before it carried out a detailed inspection.
We can't accept the proposal of building a permanent radioactive waste storage site in our town.
An expert panel set up by Tochigi Prefecture will meet on Wednesday to examine the site selection process the central government used. Hotel owners in Japan are seeing more and more guests from abroad coming through their doors. More than 10 million foreign visitors arrived last year, but the government wants that number doubled by the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And with competition heating up, hotel operators are thinking outside the box.
A dragon poised to leap from the ceiling. Sumo wrestlers looming over the bed. Guests in this hotel are confronted with Japanese culture and art at every turn. This arresting interior design has a real-world function to grab the attention of foreign tourists. Since opening in 2003, visitors from abroad have accounted for an increasing share of the hotel's business. But a brief slump in arrivals after the 2011 earthquake got the managers thinking, how could they attract more guests from overseas? They came up with the answer last year, when the hotel began remodeling its guest rooms. Artists were invited to contribute graphic motifs. It's a way of standing out from the competition. And the word is spreading through the internet and foreign publications.
We have been successful in connecting with the foreign market, thanks to international PR. We aim to spread our brand name.
Since the Japanese government kicked off a campaign to attract more foreign tourists in 2003, arrivals have risen by an average of 9% per year. The number of hotel rooms has increased to match this. Tokyo has seen a 20% rise. However, some analysts are concerned that this may lead to a possible surplus of accommodation.
There may be a time when demand stops increasing, particularly once the Olympics are over. There's a risk there will be an oversupply of rooms.
Some of the newcomers are looking for ways to minimize their risk. One example is this company. This pickle producer was founded 120 years ago. With demand for its core business fading, the company decided that hotel management could be a promising side business. So it converted its former headquarters. The building was renovated, and last year it reopened for business as a capsule hotel. The compact sleeping units can accommodate a large number of guests.
Can just remove all the capsules and turn this back into our headquarters.
Okay, we are like capsule hotel.
Already about 30% of the guests are from abroad. To meet the needs of customers with more baggage, a number of wider capsules are available.
This doesn't look like a capsule hotel at all. Oh, this is good. This is a hard one. I like it.
Positive responses like this are encouraging.
During cherry blossom season, over half our guests were from abroad. We'll need to open a second hotel and even a third.
Foreign arrivals are increasing, but so are their accommodation options. Hotel owners know they'll need to get creative if they want to stand out from the crowd.